Hi, this is Dean from Sentinel Candles. This video is all about how to get started making melt and pour soap. So in front of me I've got a couple of my designs that I make for my shop. They sell quite well. I'm going to show you the equipment that I use to make my soap. So the most important part about making soap is your base. These melt and pour bases are Crystal Clear and Goat's Milk Soap. These are my two main bases that I use. However, there are a number of other different bases that you can get, including oatmeal, olive oil, honey, and the list goes on. I'll put a link in the description below. These are 500 gram block from Natural Candle Supply. For me, one of the most important things about melt and pour or making a design is getting the right color. For these I use liquid dyes, and I get these from Aussie Candle Supply, and as you can see I have pretty much all their colors. I can blend them together and make a unique color, or I can just go with a red or a blue, but they're very important. And these are skin safe soap dyes as well. Another way to color your soap is to use micas. It's basically just a fine powder, cosmetic. It's the same grade as what women use for makeup. It should be noted that when using mica powders, the soap will not always turn out the same, unlike the liquid dye, where if you use 3 drops this time, 3 drops next time, it would be the same. The weight of the mica is very hard to measure because it's quite light. So just keep that in mind, that micas are very hard to duplicate over and over. I like using mica powders because they give me a unique design every time I use it. And that's why I change my loaves all the time, because I want it to be different. I just wanted to point out one little item that I like using. It's called Shooting Star Ultra Fine Glitter. And I get this from Aussie Soap Supplies. And this is the 10 gram, and I've had this for probably 3 months now, and I haven't even used half of it. And I pretty much use it on half of the soap bases that I do. I absolutely love using this. It just gives a nice glittery shine to the soaps. But this is optional. You don't need to use it. Getting your temperatures right to actually use melt and pour is very important. There are 2 ways to do this. You can use a candy thermometer like this one, and it will basically give you a readout of how hot your soap is. Personally, I stick with the IR thermometer, the infrared, compared to the candy thermometer, just because it's quick and easy. It's got a little digital display on the back where I can point it at something and there is a laser on the table there, and it will tell me the degree straight away. With the candy thermometer, that would probably take 10 to 15 seconds, and sometimes that can be a difference between pouring and not pouring. These are about probably 5. You can probably get it in any craft store. This one I bought online. It was around about $40. I'm happy with the fact that it's going to be around for a long time and it's quick and easy to use. Okay, so the next thing that we need with our melt and pour is somewhere to actually pour it into. We have a range of silicone molds here. I suggest silicone. I've used metal before and I found it very hard to get out, to the point where I've actually had to get a knife and cut it out, and at that stage you pretty much ruin your soap. I suggest silicone. It's nice and flexible and you can just pop your soap out of it. So in front of me is a loaf, this one here. This is the one that I do all my videos with. It holds 10 bars, which is around about 1,092 grams. Each bar is about 100 grams each. So next up we've got this one, which is 6 cavities. Each cavity holds around about 120 grams. I mainly use these ones for non-scented white goat's milk soap. I have quite a few customers that just want a plain color, no patterns, sometimes no fragrances. These are perfect because I can just pour them and 2 hours later I can pop them out, wrap them up and sell them off. So these ones here, specialty ones, they're tiny little hearts. I've got more hearts here, but they're different type of hearts, they're different designs. These ones are even smaller hearts. You can see my finger is about the same size as one of the hearts, so that's how small they are. And I definitely do recommend using silicone molds. There's so many silicone molds that you can buy. eBay is probably the best place to get them. I get most of mine from China because I can get them cheaper. The problem is you got to wait 30 days for them to get to Australia. So if you can buy them locally for a couple of dollars more, then go for it because they'll last a long time. You're also going to need some sort of weight system where you can actually put your soap on and it will tell you how many grams. For these, This is about $10. I bought it from one of my suppliers that sells me fragrances. I put a CD cover on top because if you've ever used fragrances before, you'll know that they eat into plastic, and this is just a plastic. I put a CD case on top of it, therefore the fragrance doesn't eat into the plastic. But there are metal ones, which I highly recommend, and they probably give a better reading than something like this. But for me, this is fine. Okay, so a really important part about making soap is, especially when you're doing layers and things like that, is using rubbing alcohol. This is the brand that I use in Australia. I think it's around about 70 to 80% rubbing alcohol, which is quite a strong thing, but not obviously as strong as what you can get. I think you go up to like 90%. And I put it in a little spritz bottle like this, and you can just sort of spray it out when you need to. You're also going to need a knife like this without a serrated blade. Make sure it's nice and flat, so when you cut your soap, it comes out smooth. Now I use this particular one to cut my bases up to put in my pouring pot, but this is the knife that I use to cut my soaps once they're done. And as you can see, it is quite a large knife, very dangerous too. If you're going to use a knife like that, be extremely careful. To melt your soap base, you're going to need a microwave or a double boiler. In this case, for me, I use a crock pot, which you see in front of you, with the pouring pots at the back. These are aluminium. They work perfectly with melt and pour soap. So in here, I've cleaned this out, but this is normally filled with water, and the pouring pot sits inside it. The water inside heats the pouring pot, which then melts the soap base. You can also use a microwave, but I haven't personally done that before. If you want to check out how to do that, visit Soap Queen TV on YouTube, and she has lots of videos on how to use the microwave to melt your melt and pour. One last thing you'll need for your melt and pour soap is skin-friendly fragrances. As you can see, I have a few of them just here. These are my 500ml bottles, and then all these plastic bags you can see here have 4 in each one of them, and they're 100ml bottles. I've also got a small collection of fragrances that I test down here, which are 30ml each. So I hope that information gives you a little bit of an insight into what you'll need to do to start making melt and pour soap. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below, and I'll try and help you out the best I can. Thanks for watching.